Hi, this is Gosuico with EMT Paramedics on Facebook and my friend Rod Savage at rodsavage.com. In this episode, The Art of Medicine. Find my friends at EMT Paramedic on Facebook and join them. And feel free to share this video with your medic friends and your corpsman friends. Alright, so here we go. All my stuff is scenario work, so let's jump in it, throw on your thinking caps. I'm in the backyard and I'm watering my plants and you're feeling a little frisky, so you want to stop me from watering my plants, and all you have is a 4-foot section of garden hose to stop me from watering my plants. So what are you going to do? So the first thing you're going to say is, I'm going to pull the hose away from you. Well, you can't do that, it's against the rules, and it wouldn't be that much fun. So let's prevent you. You can't take the hose away from me. What else are you going to do? You're going to turn off the spigot, right? But that's still not the 4-foot section of garden hose. That's a spigot issue. I'll give you credit for it. But how are you going to stop me from watering my plants using the 4-foot section of garden hose that you have? Right on. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to kink it. Just put a bend in the hose, put a knot in it, and you'll have a trickle downstream after the knot, and I won't be able to water my plants. Let's say you had access to the kitchen or your pocket knife. Right on. So what you would do is you would just poke it, and all your water pressure would just come out, and therefore no water pressure downstream. So let's say you had access to one side of the hose, and you could actually look into the hose itself. What would you do? Right on. You'd throw a knot in it. You throw a knot in it, a rag in it, or a rock, right? And you'd plug it up. You had a dish rag, you'd shove it in there, and you just plug it up. Okay. So bear with me, because this is a stretch. If I gave you a pencil eraser and 3 days, then what would you do with that? You just rub it. Take that pencil eraser, rub it, and what you'd have is it gets super thin, and it'd start to balloon out. And all your water pressure would go into this balloon, and a little bit less water pressure would come out. This is kind of like a bubble in the side of your tire, right? And you don't want that, because that can blow at any time. Okay, so, and then the last thing is, if I had left this garden hose out in the backyard underneath sunlight in Arizona for, I don't know, 60, 70 years, and it got all hard and faded out and older, and then I took a water pressure hose, and I pressurized this water and shoved it into that area where it curved over. What would happen is I would get a little bit of erosion right there, just from all the hardening of the garden hose and the pressure from my pressure washer. I would just get a little erosion there, and that erosion would just get bigger and bigger. It would turn into a divider, right? And then that divider would eventually, once it turns into a big divider, it will dissect. It will put a secondary tube inside my one tube, and it'll cause a dissection. So I'll go into much bigger detail in my AAA versus dissection episode, but I just wanted to infer here why you will have a higher blood pressure on your right side than on your left. So if you have a patient with a cardiac history and they have hypertension, right, your pressure washer, then your blood pressure is going up here, and it will normally cause a higher blood pressure on the right side than on the left side, because the right side of the aortic branch, right, the aortic arch, the right side is first to get the higher blood pressure than your left side, because the right side is on this side, is a divider, the dissection. So anyway, if you have a rip-roaring hypertensive or cardiac history, and you have time to take a right and left blood pressure, letting the base hospital know what you get as far as blood pressure assessment will let them know that you know what you're talking about. All right, so let's jump into these guys real quick, because this is an embolus. This is a constriction of some kind. It might be a plaque, right? This is an aneurysm. This is a trauma. We like trauma. This is a spigot problem. So it's an electrical problem or maybe a nerve problem. But there's not much you can do about that. I'll go through a cardiac episode where I'll tell you how to treat the 3 different types, right? Too fast, too slow, or nothing at all as far as electrical flow goes. And then this is going to be your dissection, which I'll cover later in another episode. So what are we going to do pre-hospital? Well, first of all, the study of the human body is about flow. And if you can restore flow or get them to the hospital so that the hospital can restore flow and or stop some flows from getting worse, like a traumatic event from getting worse, then you will have rescued your victim. So it's really important to be able to recognize when this is happening, where it's happening, and then get them to the hospital as soon as possible with a proper assessment. So anyway, let's go through this. This is a clot, or usually a thrombus. A thrombus, all it wants to do is get bigger. Without heat or pressure, a clot just wants to get bigger. So we're going to give this an antiplatelet. And what's your antiplatelet out in the field? Again, follow your protocols, right? You're not giving stuff that you're not allowed to give. So what are your protocols when you have a clot or when you have chest pain? So if this is happening in your heart, it's a heart attack or an MI. If this is happening in your brain, it's a stroke or a CVA, except in number 2. And I'll go into that one in a little bit more detail. But if this is happening in your heart and you're having a heart attack, right, chest pain, classic signs, then what you want to do is prevent that clot from getting bigger by giving it an antiplatelet called aspirin. This is a constriction. So a constriction, you want to dilate. So you want to give a vasodilator. And a potent vasodilator that you have on the medic is nitroglycerin, right? And it's important because in number 2, in this number 2 over here, your treatment for a CVA stroke is completely different, and I'll go over that, but give me a little bit of time here. This is an aneurysm, so we're going to treat an aneurysm in a couple of ways. There's a couple of reasons why we'll treat them, and depending on the physician and what the hospital does, we'll do something called a stent or a tunnel on the inside, and we'll actually just push that area back down and put in a stent. That's a tunnel on the inside. So here's what that looks like. Basically, we take this wire screen mesh, kind of look like a mesh from your screen door, right? And it's closed, it's compact, and we'll thread a catheter over it, a balloon catheter over it. We'll put that in position right there over the constriction, and then we'll blow up the balloon catheter and the wire mesh. Then we'll deflate the catheter, and we'll pull the catheter out, leaving an inside tunnel called a stent in place. So that's a stent. The other thing we're going to do, and usually this is going to be an OR procedure, so they'll open up the chest or open up the abdomen. Sometimes they'll be able to, they'll probably do a craniotomy. They'll open up the brain if this is happening in the head. But what we'll do is we'll put a tunnel on the outside, and that's called a graft. So if you had an aneurysm, first we're going to clip the aneurysm, or we'll suture up the traumatic event, and then we'll do a graft. So a tunnel on the outside is a graft. And then, because technology is so good right now, what also we'll do one of our options is we'll have this same balloon catheter that we use for the stent. We'll thread this. We'll thread a coil that's inside, and it's only straight because it's inside the catheter. As soon as it comes out of the catheter, it starts to coil up, and then we'll just throw more and more coils in. And once we've plugged up this hole with coils, then we'll remove the catheter, right, and we'll restore blood pressure downstream. So in the human body, there's only 6 ways to stop flow. It's going to be airflow, blood flow, lymphatic flow, cellular flow. There'll be food and water that's trying to flow through, and if we can restore it, then we can make this person back to health. If we cannot stop it from getting worse, or we cannot restore it, then of course we have death and disease. All right, so let's go through number 2 real quick. And number 2 is different because what's happening in the brain. So it's not really a CVA stroke, but it's more like a migraine, right? You have a headache. And what's good for headaches? It's going to be the opposite of vasodilator. It's going to be a vasoconstrictor. And I can get it in San Francisco at every other street corner. Sometimes they're catty-corner from each other. And it's going to be like I can order a tall or a grande or a venti. That's right. Caffeine. So caffeine is going to be a vasoconstrictor and allow blood flow to the brain. I'll explain that in just a second. Let's say that that is your brain. And then this is your skull. This is a vasodilated capillary, and this is a vasoconstricted capillary. A vasodilated capillary presses down on your brain and causes you to have a headache. So this is the part where I have to digress, because some of you physician types are going to want me to talk about arterioles, and I'm just not going to go to arterioles level. So just bear with me if you guys are thinking arterioles and not and physiological vasoconstriction. But I just want to get the mass amount of people to understand. This is your artery, and your artery is coming from a relatively warm heart, and your artery is insulated with musculature. And this is your vein. And your vein is very thin-walled, and basically, if I take a cube of Breyer's double chocolate, wavy gravy, turtle fudge ice cream, and I put that right there, what's going to constrict first is your very thin-walled, physiological constriction, is your very thin-walled artery. And since this artery is very thin-walled, it'll constrict, it'll get smaller. Blood that was going down to your heart from your cold brain is now going to back up and go up into your brain, and then your capillaries, arterioles, will get dilated. They will press down on your brain, causing you a ice cream headache or a brain freeze, right? So the cure for that is either take the ice cream away or give coffee ice cream, espresso ice cream. All right, I'm just kidding. But basically, if they come in with a migraine or a headache, this explains your caffeine headache and also explains your ice cream headache and your brain freeze. Okay, so in number 2, you don't give nitroglycerin because if they come in with a headache, they already have the symptoms of getting nitroglycerin, right? What happens when you give a cardiac victim a nitroglycerin? Yeah, they say, I have a headache. Okay, so don't give a migraine a headache, more of a headache by giving them nitroglycerin. And since you can't give caffeine in the medic, maybe you can't give caffeine in the medic, then and then take this person to the hospital for evaluation, especially if they're showing other signs and symptoms. Okay, so don't forget your oxygen, and some of you guys on your protocols, follow your base protocols. Some of you guys can give morphine en route, especially with don't dump the blood pressure with nitroglycerin. Okay, and there you go. This is the art of medicine, and come follow me on EMT Paramedics on Facebook, or and find me on Roz Savage. My friend Roz Savage is an environmental campaigner and ocean rower, setting a couple of world records. So come find us over at her website, rozsavage.com. And for any of you rookies out there, even though I think that Sierra Tahoe Ski Patrol is the best, most well-trained ski patrol in the world, this video is not associated with Sierra Tahoe Ski Patrol. Alright, this is Jay Gosuico, Shaka and Mahalo, and feel free to share this.